Hello folks, it brings me great pleasure to be joined on the bank today by an old friend of mine, the Masters Feeder World Champion newly crowned, Simon Fry.
Fantastic.
Simon,
Great to be here.
What an achievement.
Amazing. I mean, it's just seems surreal, Tom, to be honest with you. I'm still sort of living in cuckoo land. It's it's just been a mad couple of weeks since we got back from Italy, and stuff dreams are made of.
Oh,
you know, I couldn't have, in my wildest dreams, kind of conjured that one up. So yeah, brilliant.
It's superb, isn't it? I mean, of all the titles to win, and you've won a fair few, we're going to come on to that in a while, but I mean, to be called champion of the world in your discipline.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. And what made it really, really special was the fact that the team, and there's a great, squad of 10 anglers went over there. We all got on fantastically. We had a brilliant time. Came away, as runners-up in the World Championships with a silver medal. All 10 of us.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't have celebrated my own achievement without that for the guys as well.
Of course, yeah.
It would have been a kind of bittersweet thing. I'm sure in time I would have sort of looked back and thought, yeah, fantastic. But what made it really special was being able to do that with everyone else. We all celebrated that night. It was fantastic. So yeah,
awesome.
Brilliant.
I want to just give a little bit of context to all this, because obviously I think most people watching will know who you are, but not everyone might know about this event. It's a relatively new event. It's the second year it's run.
Second year, yeah.
And it's for anglers or feeder anglers between over the age of 55.
55, yeah. 55 and over.
A lot of people won't believe you are over 55.
Oh, no, it's hard to believe. I don't feel like, over 55. I'm a few years over 55 too, so
right.
I'm still in my 50s, hanging on in there.
That's
so
all right. You can't be that much over 55.
59 now. So, it's a fantastic thing. What an opportunity. At my sort of stage of my angling career, to get to fish for your country in the World Championships on its own is just the most amazing feeling. And that happened last year. First ever Masters Feeder World Championships was in Spain last year.
Yep.
And that's its first year, so our squad's been together for 2 years, and to achieve what we've done this year in just our second year together, just blown us all away. Yeah, blown us all away.
So let's talk a little bit first about the team then. So who's in the squad with you?
So the anglers, you had Tommy Pickering, Darren Cox, myself, Andy Moss and Rich Vaughan.
So it's quite a team.
And that's the same 5 that went to Spain, Merida last year.
Yeah.
We had the addition this year. Dave Berry has joined the squad this year. He fished in the European Feeder Cup that Lee Carey organised on this venue here. And so Dave joined the squad this year.
Yeah.
And then that was 6. And then you've got our manager Nigel Franks.
Yeah.
It just organises everything like you wouldn't believe. Mark Morris, assistant manager.
Yeah.
Stevie Welford. Again, Steve fished for us here and is a great angler in his own right. He was our best scorer actually here at Barston on the European Feeder Cup.
Yeah.
And Steve is. I haven't actually mixed my own ground bait for about 2 weeks because Steve just did everything there. And, he just delivered a little parcel of bait to me every morning. And fantastic guy. And then Rob Brennan. I mean, what can you say about Rob? He's one of my best mates, has been for years and years and years. Brilliant angler in his own right. He's not old enough to even be in the squad.
I wouldn't believe that. I thought he'd be straight in there, Rob.
So no, Rob's, and we actually borrowed Rob's van. He got a brand new van delivered, hadn't driven it himself, and he gave it to me and Darren to drive over to Italy. So yeah, brilliant. And that was the 10. I haven't missed anyone, have I?
I don't think so.
No.
So.
Oh, I have.
Have you?
No, Mark Morris. Did I say Mark Morris?
Mark Morris,
yeah. Mark. I've got to say about Mark. He organised all the bonus balls and all the sort of fundraising because we're a self-funded team.
Yeah.
We get a little bit of sponsorship along the way, which is gratefully received. Fantastic support from Sensors for ground bait. DFDS paid for all our ferries, so we didn't. That's 4 vans.
Brilliant.
And the Angling Trust, of course, with the entry and so on and so forth. And Oliver at Hawk and Hunt for some nice garments.
Brilliant.
So yeah,
it's good to hear, that you are getting looked after in that way. You're flying the flag for England, but also for match fishing. I think that's often forgotten, isn't it? And to see, a English-grown world champion, we've got, to my knowledge, 3 of them this year. Yourself, Helen Dagnall, and Josh Duffy. And as you say, it's what better for match fishing as a platform.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah, what a great year.
So. Forgive if some of these questions seem a bit basic, but we get a real wide range of people watching the channel. So I want to just delve into the World Champs experience.
Right.
You go away for 10 days or a week?
Yeah, 10 days. 10 days. So bear in mind it's 2 days driving each way.
Yeah.
Because we've got to drive over to Italy. You've got to drive because of all the gear. The equipment we take is ridiculous, really. Just for fishing essentially a couple of feeder rods, but you won't believe the amount of kit we take.
Yeah.
But yeah, so 4 vans, 2 days each way, and then the official practice is 4 days. So it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for the official practice, and the match days were Friday and Saturday, but we got there a couple of days early. Saturday had a walk around, and then Sunday we went off the match length and had a fish, and it was, got some really good information on those few days, so yeah, brilliant.
So going into that week, obviously there's more anglers than places, and everybody's aware of that.
Yeah.
So you have a practice through the week, and I'm guessing you're trying to work out team tactics, what you're going to be doing come the 2-day championship at the weekend after.
Yeah.
But also, is there an element of you trying to fish for your place in the team as well?
Well, of course, but essentially what we're doing to start with, on the early days, Monday, Tuesday, we're kind of trying different things out. It's almost a process of elimination, fact finding. So, for example, we'll have a lineup, and Nigel, the manager, will say, right, I want Angler 1 fishing ground bait. I want Angler 2 fishing leam.
Yeah.
I want Angler 3 fishing ground bait and leam mixed.
Yeah.
And then someone else fishing leam again and ground bait. And if a pattern emerges from those couple of days, which it did do, you can kind of eliminate things and sort of. But by Wednesday evening, so the 3rd day of practice, you really want to have arrived as a team at something you all agree on.
Yeah.
So that Thursday, the last day of practice, you can put that into practice and think, right, this is what we're actually going to do. So that's the kind of general plan. And obviously you try different lines, different target fish.
Yeah.
You've just got to try and cover all eventualities and make sure you're in the best position possible to have a plan to put in on Thursday and then, day 1 Friday.
Got you. No, that makes sense. So you've got your sort of plan. We'll go through the week. At what point through the week did you sort of realise you were in the team, or did that come as a surprise on the Friday for you?
No, I mean, on Thursday is the last day, and the team isn't announced until Thursday, late on Thursday.
Right, okay.
So I had a good practice. I mean, I did fairly well. I felt comfortable with the venue, and lots of things I tried came off, and it was. I felt really, really in tune with the venue. But you never take anything for granted.
No, of course
you're at a World Championships in an England team.
Yeah.
You can't take these things for granted. So no, the team was announced on the Thursday after practice, and got in the team obviously. So
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I remember when the feeder team first came about. A lot of people said there was a feeling that feeder fishing is an English method, i.e. we were the first to really do it, sort of thing. Obviously a bit in Benelux as well. But they thought that maybe when it came to experience, Team England would have the edge, but that's not proved to be the case over the last decade. There's some fantastic international feeder anglers out there, isn't there?
And you've got to remember also these international teams are fishing the styles that you need to fish in World Championships. For example, bloodworm, joker, leam fishing. We don't do that a lot here.
No,
there's not a lot of it.
I was thinking that. I mean, on the continent they probably do that week in, week out, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So you're in the team, and day 1 comes around, and I understand you were quite pleased with the draw when it came out.
Well, on day 4 of practice, I should say, we drew box A. And it's a long straight bit of water. There's 2 end pegs. You've got A1 and D10. They're the only 2 pegs. It's a dead straight canal, bit something like a Fenland drain, for example. And we drew box A, and Nigel, the manager, put me on A1, which is like an end peg, gold dust. After the final day of practice, they did the section draw, and I drew in A section, and the boys were all sort of, you'll be on A1 again, A1, and I was thinking, well, the draw's done in the morning, and guess what? Sure enough, draw came through. By the way, we were last to draw, so I got what was left.
Is that a random? Do they do a draw for draw
order?
They
do a draw for draw order. They do a draw. So you got a draw for the draw. And we drew 10, so we were last to draw, and basically we didn't draw. We got what was left. And I got A1. So after having practiced it on the last day of practice on Thursday, first day of the World Champs on the Friday, I sat on the same peg. Brilliant. So I knew, the lines where I'd put the feed, everything. So kind of, it couldn't have really started any better for me. And there's no guarantees. You've still got a job to do.
It's good and bad, isn't it? It's great because you think I've got a massive opportunity, but did you feel a little bit of pressure?
Yeah, a little bit, I mean, the thing is, I felt really comfortable with it. So, I had a good day in practice. The beauty of that end was that although there were carp throughout the length, that end had recently been dredged. So there was just clay on the far bank, and there were really no carp caught there at all during practice. So for me, it was just a simple, get your head down, fish for skimmers, which is what I've done in the practice. And I've had an absolutely mint day. I mean, I've had 4.2 kilos of skimmers, all between 4 and 10 ounces.
About £10, isn't it?
Lovely day's fishing. I mean, that was second in the zones. And a German angler, a couple of pegs to my right, caught some big fish and beat me by a couple of 100 grams. But, 2 points, day one of the World Championships, job done for the team, which is the most important thing.
Brilliant.
And I think that was 4th overall in the whole match as well. So it was, it was a steady, stress-free day. It really was a sort of fairly chilled out day. And I've got Rich Vaughan running my section for me. Rich, talk about, if you want someone as a bank runner, he is just mint. I mean, he was, constantly encouraging me, always enthusiastic, and if ever anything was going slightly kind of wonky, don't worry about it, mate. He's just completely chilled out, and it's the constant encouragement. It just keeps you going during the day. So
I can't say enough good things about Rich Vaughan. He's a fellow Sheffield bloke, and I've known him for years. He's just the nicest man ever. And what an angler as well.
Oh, I know. And it's 1.5 degrees, and he's still wandering around in shorts and flip flops.
Sounds about right.
So he did put his thick-soled flip flops on, to be fair. So it was a bit chilly. Yeah.
Some boy. So brilliant, a dream start. And day one for the team, where were you lying after day one?
Well, after day one, there's the real story behind day one, a real massive turning point.
Right.
We had, myself, I had 2 points, Tommy had 3 points, Andy Moss 5 points. So that was 10 points, and we had Darren to come. Now, Darren was struggling in C-section. And we knew that from the runners. The runners know exactly what's going on, they really do. And Darren was really struggling. And he was asked, or he decided, along with Rob Brennan, who was running his bank, and Nigel, the manager, even with a couple of big skimmers, which were rare, by the way. Skimmers 4 to 10 ounces were standard. Anything above 12 was rare. Yeah. And even with a couple of 3 big skimmers, Daz would have only jumped up another point or a couple of places. Yeah. So it was decided to fish for carp. Right. And you can imagine the as the clock was counting down, you get to like the 5-minute hooter, to 5 minutes to the end of the match went, and as the 5-minute hooter went, Daz's tip's gone, and he's into a Migliarino carp. And carp only count for 3 kilos, by the way. Right. And this thing, I mean, playing that, he's got Nigel running behind him, and he's sort of, the stress levels, you can imagine it.
Yeah.
He's sort of bottom 2 in the section, but if he gets this out, the chance he's going to win the section.
Flipping out.
So
Talk about a pressure fish.
Pressure, if you want one person to do that, I mean, cool as a cucumber, Dazzler has been there, seen it, done it. Yeah. And he netted the fish with Nigel counting him down 1 minute to go. And in World Champs, it's got to be out of the water. Yeah. He scooped it out, there's 1 minute left, and Daz has gone from, that carp, by the way, was 4.6 kilos. Wow. So counted for 3 kilos. I think he weighed 3.5 kilos. Second in the zone, 1.9 kilos. So that's an 8-point swing. So Daz has gone from 9th to 1st. Brilliant. So that first has given us 11 points, and we're tied at the top with France on day one. And the Italians on the home venue, we thought they'd be hard to beat there. Yeah. We're 3rd, but only 3 points behind. So it was really tight at the top.
Well, I've interviewed Tommy about this sort of thing a couple of times. One thing he always says is, you can't win a World Champs on day one, but you can lose it.
You can lose it, yeah.
So I'm guessing you're really happy going into day 2.
Oh, man, yeah, we're in the hunt. We're in the hunt.
Great opportunity.
That evening we've had a team meeting, talked about everything. We're all in a good place because we're going into day 2 in the hunt. Yeah. In the hunt. That was the main thing. And the main focus for the runners on day 2 then was keep an eye on the Italians and the French, and also the Germans. The Germans were in 4th, but they were about 6 or 7 points behind. Yeah. So it was really, but mainly keep an eye on the French and the Italians. That was the kind of runners' objective on day 2, to see how we were doing in relation to them. So, yeah.
Brilliant. So into day 2 then, the draw.
On paper, we've not got as good a draw, but we're in the hunt, and that's the main thing. The conditions were horrendous on day 2, completely different. I should say, during the week of practice and on the first day, it was very, very still, very calm, very cold, freezing cold. 1.5 degrees. As I said, Rich Vaughan was in his thick-soled flip-flops. It was that cold.
Must have been cold.
It was cold, and. Day 2 conditions, Tom, were completely different. It'd been really cold and calm, still, freezing cold, frosts every morning. And then day 2, the wind was like hacking, like proper gale force wind blowing up the channel.
Yeah.
I mean, there were 2-foot waves rolling up the canal. So the tow was huge compared to, there was no tow before. We were using on day 1 and through practice, 1/2 ounce glass tips are fine. Yeah. You could see tiny little skimmer bites, you know, from these. They're only fishing for small skimmers.
Yeah.
Some of them were almost imperceptible little rattles on the tip. But day 2, those tips would have been no good at all. And so it was using slightly stiffer carbon tips.
Yeah.
Having to think about feeders, you know, before we were using little tiny cage feeders, releasing leam and bits of ground bait off. But with the tow, you know, we kind of use more window feeder approach to get everything down, nailed on the bottom. So yeah, and also we'd been feeding the far bank line with a kind of as a bonus fish and resting line, and that was really, really hard because you imagine you're trying to chuck your feeder into little holes on the brambles, and with that gale force wind blowing down, it was almost impossible. I mean, I've sort of tried to feed at the start. I've, you know, landed one on spot, 1 6 foot left, 1 6 foot right, and it just wasn't right. So it was really, really difficult conditions on day 2.
It sounds it. But I mean, obviously, it went very well for you. Just talk us through that match, because I mean, that was the one that sealed the win for you.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I was talking about the French and Italians having to keep an eye on them. Well, I had the Italian on my left and the Frenchman on my right. Oh. So for Rich, again, ran my section for me on day 2. He really just sat behind me, and you know, he's looking at me, the Italian and the Frenchman. Probably after, I went on my far line earlier than I'd really wanted to, but I had a really good run of skimmers over there, and sort of 3 hours in, I probably had 2.5 kilos of skimmers, which was good. Yeah. I was probably tied with the Frenchman on my right, beating the Italian comfortably on my left, but D9 and D10, right down the bottom near the bridge, were emptying it, and they were way ahead. So it was, they were clear out in 1 and 2, and I was tying with vying for third with a Frenchman. Yeah. But you know, I was tying with him and beating the Italian, so it was kind of okay. Yeah, good, it was okay, still to be third. Yeah. The turning point of the match, it was a massive turning point. Probably an hour and a half to go. The wind that had been blowing, hacking up the channel, it kind of had been veering round, and it started coming off our backs. Right. So all of a sudden, that little hole on the far bank that had been impossible to hit in that wind, I thought, do you know, I could refeed that. I can literally land some feed into that little hole in the brambles by this bush. Yeah. And so with an hour and a half to go, my skimmer lines had really, really slowed down, and I thought, I'm just going to gamble essentially, but I've got to feed it and I've got to have a resting line. And it wasn't so much thinking I'm going to catch a load of carp there. Yeah. It was thinking I need somewhere to go to rest my skimmer line to try and resurrect them.
A bit of a change.
Yeah. So I put 5 feeder falls over on this this bush, and it went in beautifully. Fished another 10 minutes on my skimmer line, and had a couple, but it was evident it was tailing off quite badly. Yeah. So I thought, I've got to rest it. Picked up my carp rod, big bunch of bloodworm, like 8 great big bloodworm on this hook. Chucked it over, and I thought, just admiring the cast, thinking, oh, that's gone in beautifully. I said, oh, better put the rod down. Put the rod down. As I put it down, it's gone. Oh, wow. And I've been latched into Migliarino carp, number 1. And of course the old ticker starts going. World Championships day 2.
Teams in contention for a gold.
Teams in contention for a medal.
Tell me if I'm right, Si, but I'd guess with a second from day 1, you wouldn't even really be thinking about an individual win, would you?
No, because there were obviously you've got 4 people with 1 point. Yeah. And
3 others with 2 or whatever.
Yeah. It's 3 others with 2. And also, I'm just thinking team. We've got to get, I'm thinking about trying to do well for the team. Yeah. Anything else is a byproduct. You know, it's if you do well as a team, the chances are one of you are going to do well as an individual, because you've got to for the team to do well.
Yeah, of course.
But I hadn't thought about that. And you know, besides that, there were 2 Frenchmen on wins from day 1 in sections B and C that were also winning their sections on day 2. But I hadn't crossed my mind at that stage. Yeah. So I've hooked this carp anyway. When I hooked it, the German, it might have been the Irish fella, 3 or 4 pegs to my right, also hooked a carp, but on his skimmer line. Right. And there was a massive crowd around him. Everyone was sort of watching him. He was playing this fish for quite a while, and then I've hooked my carp. Yeah. And I got it in, and no one even noticed I'd caught it. So it was, which is bizarre, because there's not many carp caught at all. Yeah. And Nigel, our manager, was watching this angler a couple of pegs down play this carp. And as he turned around and come back to me, I was just pulling my carp in and sort of netting it. He's gone, bloody, I didn't see you have a carp. I didn't realise you had a carp. Brilliant. So I've got this carp. It was 3.6 kilos, so I count as 3. So I've gone from 2.5 kilos, which is roughly what I had of skimmers, to 5.5 kilos. And all of a sudden, with that one fish, I'm now pushing 9 and 10 for first place, and I'm now beating the Frenchman and I was beating the Italian anyway.
Brilliant.
So I fed another couple of feederfuls on that far bank line.
Yeah.
Again, tried for skimmers. It was still really slow on the skimmer line, and again I put the rod down after casting out, and it's like a minute ago it's gone again, and I've had another 3 kilo plus carp.
Oh wow!
So it's just you couldn't make it up really. It was just
awesome.
You know,
it's interesting. Yeah, something you said, and like I've had it myself. Not every time I'll cast them, let me add that straight away, but there are certain casts you do, aren't there, where you chuck it and you think, oh, that's got in. That's got in lovely.
That's lovely, yeah.
And to hear that story of just putting the rod down and feeling it on,
yeah.
that must have been euphoric.
I didn't even have time to properly admire the cast. It was sort of, I thought, oh, it's lovely. I could have done with another minute of admiring it before it went, but you know, you take it, don't you? So, yeah, and so I had that second carp, and you know, I'm now pretty much at the top of the section, not definitely clear.
Yeah.
Although, as it turned out, I would have been with those 2 carp, because there's 2.5 kilos of skimmers which were weighed separately.
Yeah.
3 kilos. That gave me 8.5 kilos.
Yeah.
As it turned out, 8.1 kilos was second off the end, and I think 7 kilos on 9.
Yeah.
So I was there at that stage. Didn't realise it,
Yeah.
but at that stage, I'm now thinking, well, there's 40 minutes to go. I'm just going to fish for carp now, and I had 2 more. In the last sort of 45 minutes.
14 kilos?
12.5 kilos. No, the last 2 were 2 and 2 point something and 1 point something kilos. So little babies, really. And so there you go. I was at 12.5 kilos. And I think, second was 8 and third was 7.
So the match is finished?
The match is finished.
You put your rod on your roost.
Yeah.
Set up. Did it at any point occur to you that you might be world champion at that point?
No, because literally half an hour before that, Rich had come down and had said, oh no, the Frenchmen, both Frenchmen are winning their sections with half an hour to go. And you think, well, there's two with section wins. Looking back, I wasn't thinking at the time, but looking back, I was thinking, well, you've got 2 Frenchmen with section wins, both winning their sections with half an hour to go.
Yeah.
One of them's going to end up on 2 points, and obviously I can only get 3 points. I've got 3 points. I know I've got 3 points. But both Frenchmen, this is when things go for you. I mean, I had the A1 situation on day 1, the carp on day 2, and then to top it all, both Frenchmen got beaten by big fish late on in the last half an hour. So they both ended up second. So there were 5 of us with 3 points. And obviously, because of the carp weight on day 2, I was well clear. I think, second was 8 kilos. So
we'll come on to the aftermath in a minute, because I mean, what a feeling that must have been when you realised.
Yeah, amazing.
But there's just something come to mind then. I mean, obviously I've listened to Will Raisin's podcast and listened to him talk quite a few times when I've worked with him, and same with Tommy Pickering. And they always talk about game-changing fish, and I suppose, you know, giving yourself a chance of catching them, and it sounds like, you know, this is a perfect example of that in that international environment.
100%. You know, opportunities like that, I guess, are very rare. And you know, with that wind turning and going off my back, I just felt I had a perfect opportunity just to feed it. I was only really thinking of feeding it so I've got it as a resting line.
Yeah.
Because before, in the first half match, you couldn't feed it.
Yeah.
Just couldn't feed it. So I'd really nowhere to go to rest my skimmer lines. But yeah, when that wind went off my back, that was the key moment. And obviously that first carp, it just kind of, when I got that out, it just settles everything down, and you know, started really enjoying it after the second one. Yeah. And it's just an amazing feeling. But yeah, you know, Tom Pickering, who's our captain, is such an inspiration for, you know, as part of his team talk, he was saying, you know, if we get these opportunities, we've got to take them. You know, you've got to be aggressive, you know, positive.
Yeah.
And you know, you don't win world championships, you know, a team or individually,
yeah.
without, you're not taking chances as such, because you can't put the team in jeopardy.
Yeah.
But if there's an opportunity, be positive, and that's, you know, with those words ringing in my ears, it's kind of, that's what we did.
It's paid off.
Yeah, it's paid off for me massively. Yeah.
So there you are, world champion. Gold individual medal around your neck, silver team medal around your neck. Yeah. What a feeling! Amazing,
absolutely amazing feeling, Tom. I can't even begin to tell you what it feels like as a kind of, I don't know. I mean, it's just sort of blown me away, really. You know, I've been lucky. You know, I've sort of, you know, won a few things over the last couple of years. And you know, people always said with the Mave match this win a couple of years ago, you know, 60 grand, big money final, you'll never ever beat that. And I said, well, I kind of already did beat that with Division 1, because as an angler of my age, that was the biggest thing I could ever do.
Yeah.
But I never dreamed I'd fish internationally. So you think, getting a double gold domestically, as you know, Division 1 with starlets and individually, even the Mave match this didn't knock that. But this, I've got to say, blows them all out the water. You know, it's
I want to
it really does.
the next part of this video really just talking about your career, because I'll be honest with you, Simon. I've looked up to you for years. And when I was a kid buying Match Fishing magazine, I was reading about yourself, Ian Didcott, Darren Cox, Kieran Rich, Will Raisin. These were the heroes of my youth, really. You know, you were, and we grew up reading about it. But it wasn't until I think it was 3 years ago you and I were in Lavender Hall around the corner having a breakfast
and a nice coffee.
And a nice coffee.
And a very nice coffee.
And you told me something that I would never have imagined if I didn't know, and that was, you know, you're certainly not a lifelong match angler. You came into it relatively late, and you actually started off in the makeup industry, wasn't it? In the
yeah.
Just tell us how it all started for you.
What, in the cosmetics industry?
Yeah.
I mean, I just went to a job agency when I was about 19.
Yeah.
And I went for a job as a sales rep, and they sent me along. I didn't know I was going. I went to a company. It was Max Factor, based in London, and they offered me a job as a rep. And I was sort of, you know, I mean, I'm a young rugby playing, surfing dude, you know, and I was sort of selling makeup, and I thought, well, it's a job. I've got a company car, great salary. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? You know, and I can remember the boys at the rugby club all kind of, you know, taking the mick out of me, saying, "Oh, he's, you know, working in the makeup industry." And they changed their tune when at the first sort of Christmas party, I brought a lot of the girls along from work, and they were,
fantastic.
you know, it was it was amazing. Yeah, it was a great time. That's how I met my wife, Paula. She was a cosmetics consultant for another company,
right.
And you know, we've got grown-up kids now, but you know, it's it started from there. But I also met there. Terry Hale was my boss. A guy called Terry Hale was my boss at Max Factor.
Yeah.
And he ended up buying Leader Fishing Tackle Company.
Wow, right, okay.
And he was looking for a national account manager. This is years later, you know, 20 years later.
Yeah.
He was looking for a national account manager, and he got an Angling Times. And I was, do you remember when you used to do that any method trout fishing? In the close season.
Right, okay.
In the close season, you used to be able to go any method trout fishing.
Right.
And there's Old Berry Hill Lakes
in
down in Surrey, stocked a few trout, and so that people could go any method trout fishing. So I went ground bait feeder fishing for trout.
As you do.
And caught a load of bream, massive bream, obviously fishing for trout.
Yeah, of course.
But I caught some bream. And David DeVere, who owned it, came around and took a picture, and I ended up on the front page of Angling Times.
Yeah.
I mean, it's this going back years and years and years. Terry Hale was in his office at Leader, reading Angling Times, and he was like, "Bloody hell, Simon Frey used to work for me at Max Factor in the old cosmetics." So I didn't know he fished. He didn't know I fished, because at that time I was surfing and I wasn't really fishing much. Yeah. And so he tracked me down anyway, and he said, "Look, I'm looking for a national account manager," and I was a national account manager in the cosmetics industry, looking after like Boots and House of Fraser, Debenhams, those sort of accounts. And he wanted someone to come and work for him at Leader, and he made me an offer that was too good to turn down, relocated us up to Stratford-upon-Avon, and that's where I met Darren, and kind of the rest is history.
So how old would you have been at this point?
30 odd. 33 I think.
33, right.
Yeah, when I moved up. So
because I've always just imagined, as I said, like you and Darren have been best mates right through your life. I suppose you've been best friends a long time.
I mean, that's going back 27 years.
Yeah.
Tom, so you know, it's 26 years. So you know, I met Darren I moved up to Stratford in 1998.
I keep forgetting you're a master.
I'm part of the master. Yeah.
Not quite a veteran yet.
No, still a way off a veteran. But so that's how it all started really, and then you know, I moved up here, met Darren, joined Starlets fairly much after that, and then you know, with Starlets we had an amazing team back then. Well, you know, it was incredible time, fantastic time. We won, you know, 3 Winter League finals. We won 3 Division 1 nationals. We had an amazing team. It was just, and I learned so much from being part of that Starlet setup. You know, the best sort of fishing times of my life really, when I look back, it was all team fishing. That's all we did.
And it was really,
team.
And I'm not saying this in any way putting down any achievements of modern teams or anything like that. But that was the heyday of team fishing as well, wasn't it? When the nationals were huge and the Winter League final was an event everybody went down to the Neen for 2 weeks and somewhere to practice for, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, you used to have to qualify to go to a semi-final, and the semi-finals in their own right were massive events. You know, you had semi-finals at, you know, Grand New Canal, Milton Keynes, Kennet and Avon Canal, and place, and it was 2 teams from each league got into a semi, and the semi-finals just before the old close season, you qualified for, and then the final on the Neen at Peterborough was like first weekend of the season in June or July or whenever it was. But yeah, they were brilliant times. You know, we used to go and stay away as a squad together, have lineups, and hardly fished a match between January and March because it was all about practicing for the semi-finals.
So, from your fishing point of view, then, so obviously living in the south, fishing Old Bury Hill and some of the venues on the Southern Circuit.
Yeah.
Would you say you were where or your in terms of your learning? Were you as accomplished at that point as you were when you moved to the Midlands and met Darren, or was it like a step up when you moved up?
Oh no, massive step up.
Right.
I mean, I was pretty much club fishing
okay.
back then.
Yeah.
So I played cricket in the summer, so that was Saturdays and Sundays. I played cricket every Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
Used to play rugby on Saturdays in the winter, so I really fished Sundays in the winter.
Yeah.
Odd winter leagues and stuff like that. I was a part of Mottingham and District Club, and I just used to fish their club matches.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, I just like, for example, when I was younger, I used to go to Whiteacres on festivals with a load of lads fishing. I'd stay in the lodges with them, go to the draw. They'd all go fishing. I wasn't fishing. I used to go surfing. So I used to go surfing for the day, surf all day, come back and help with the weigh and stuff like that. But I never dreamed that at that time I couldn't have imagined actually fishing in a festival. But obviously years later, I absolutely loved it. Couldn't get enough of it.
Wow.
But yeah, it was. So I'm sort of fairly late to. Match fishing probably didn't start till I was late 20s. Yeah.
So he was Bob Nudd then. He was like that. I
Right.
came to realise as well. But, yeah. So I mean, really, the last 30 years have been your top flight match fishing career, and the 30 years before that, perhaps to package it nicely, we're getting to that point in some ways in fishing terms. Yeah. I've got to ask you. I mean, your achievements. Wow. I mean, there's not many, if anybody, actually, with the record you've got spread across domestic and international now. So let's just go through it. Excuse me if I miss anything. Individually, Division 1 national winner.
Yeah.
Drennan Knockout Cup champion.
Yeah.
2009.
2009 that was. 2009. Yeah.
Then obviously Maver Match this winner.
Yeah. A couple of years ago.
You wouldn't be a load of money, by the way, for booking that day.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
And now obviously world champion. I mean, in terms of majors, there's not much missing.
Amazing. I've been very fortunate. I feel privileged to have done half of those things I've done. Mainly to have fished for England. That's the biggest privilege I've had.
Yeah.
Being able to call people like Tommy Pick, teammate and a friend as well. It blows me away. I have to pinch myself sometimes to think, is this real? And then obviously from a team point of view, I said we won loads with Starlets.
Yeah.
It's really, really good days. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, team fishing has always been, as long as I've known you, it's always been a key part of your psyche. And also, being an all-rounder, you're also somebody who's prided themselves on doing a bit of everything. Yeah,
I do enjoy doing all sorts of aspects of the sport, and I kind of tend to get a little bit bored if I do one thing for too long.
Yeah.
I go through little spells, Tom, of doing all sorts of different things. I went through a spell of, doing river fishing. I live on the Avon at Stratford, which is one of the best rivers around. For me, it's one of the best rivers in the country. Yeah. Phenomenal fishing there. But I was lucky enough to get in the last 2 Riverfest finals on the Wye, for example, and I had a little campaign for a couple of years of river fishing then. But I haven't fished the river now for a long, long time. And, I miss it, but, obviously been doing a lot of feedering and ledgering and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I do like to do everything. That year I won the Drennan Knockout Cup, on the quarter-finals, it was on the Kennet and Avon Canal, and I caught 450 fish this big for £15. The very next round was at Boddington, and it's 220, 240 pound a carp on pellet wagglers.
Yeah.
So completely different fishing. And then the final was on the Wye and Docklow, again, completely different. So I think there was a round on the Thames that year as well. I love all sorts of fishing, but my current favourite is probably big reservoir feeder fishing. You sat in the most beautiful surroundings, and places like Bow Beach and Staunton Harold, places like that I love probably most of all. Yeah,
it's great. So I've got to ask you, I mean, for a man who's achieved so much, and I know we joke about it, but you are still relatively young in angling terms, 59, you've got quite feasibly 20 more years of fishing in you. What would you like to do? What one thing would you like to win now, having won everything that you've won?
Well, the most obvious thing for me, and I really mean this, would be a team gold at the World Championships.
Right.
That would be the biggest. If I could do that, that would be, me done. I reckon. That would be the biggest thing I could achieve domestically.
Yeah.
I'd love to win Feeder Masters, for example, but it's being able to fish it is the problem, because now the Feeder Masters final seems to clash with the Masters World Championships.
Of course. Yeah, so it's not easy to fit everything in your year.
No, you can't do everything. Obviously, priority for next year is the Masters World Championships, which is in Hungary, on the Zeged rowing course, which is where the Guru boys kind of cleaned up.
Oh, of
recently,
course,
Steve
won
Ringer.
both matches, did he? All three
matches, and won it individually. Rooney Ads was second individual.
Yeah.
And then you had obviously Bobby Taylor and Frankie.
Frankie was the worst performer. I've reminded that a couple of times.
I think he was still in the top 10, wasn't he? Unbelievable.
The team
Unbelievable. So they cleaned up. So, that's where our World Championships is next year. It's unfortunate it clashes with FIDE Masters final, but there's only one priority for me now, and that's to get there. That's what. So in an ideal world, I mean, crikey, is that being greedy? Trying to wish for that?
No,
but
I think
a team gold at the World Champs would be the pinnacle, the absolute dream bucket list kind of thing.
I've always admired your how can I put it, persona, your approach to your fishing. In that we used to at DHP, we used to call you nice guy sci-fi. That's what we used to call you, because you are genuinely such a nice bloke, unassuming. You come across so modest, and I think perhaps it is easily forgotten. Just the length of your CV, and to see you win a World Championship was no surprise to me at all, because I know what you've won in the past, but I think it is to a lot of people. I want to finish by asking you a question. If you could give one piece of advice to a young angler coming up in the sport, what would it be?
My advice would probably have changed over the last few years, because there's a group of guys out there that have come through the media outlets that are just absolutely amazing anglers. There's yourself, there's the man behind the camera here, Rob Swan. You've got people like Matt Godfrey. They've come through the media, and I think as a young angler, I don't think you could do anything better than possibly get into the media side of angling, because you get to spend a lot of time and delve into a lot of kind of anglers' minds about, you're out with top anglers all the time. Getting some fantastic information, so that would be one little avenue. I mean, if you media boys put together a team, it would be a bloody top team, I'll tell you. Take on all comers.
I must be honest, it is a privilege to be able to pick the brains of the likes of yourself, and I've had that for a long time. There's a lot more natural anglers out there than me, but as you say, that information really is useful. But it's thanks to people like yourself and everybody else who's been open enough to let us do our work. So So Simon, what an absolute privilege to have you on Catchmore Media. For members, we're going to go in detail over on the Catchmore Media members area into Simon's rigs and some of the approaches he used to win the World Championship. But for now, Simon, thank you very much, and Thanks, well Tom. Done, World Champion.
Thank you, mate. Cheers.